We should do a cooking show with Matt Hooper someday. So welcome to Hacking Business Technology. I just watched Matt Hooper put the finishing touch on his eggplant parmesan for this evening. Good job.
Yes, well, since every other podcast I listen to talks about chef all the time, you know.
So have you been listening to Cote's new stuff, the software-defined talks that he's doing? And then he started a new one called Lords of Computing.
Yeah, I know.
He even got like the gang font for the logo.
Yeah, it was funny.
He's a brilliant man.
Like, you know, if all the other podcasts just weren't so shoddy and didn't have great opinions like mine, so I tweeted him back. I said, we just lower the bar so you don't have to pull a muscle when you jump so high.
Oh, man. He's brilliant. I just love his stuff. It's brilliant.
Well, he's got to, you know, first of all, it's Michael
Charm.
Cote. You know, it's Cote. He's got that voice, and you know. But just what amazes me is John Willis's memory, and he complains about it all the time. He's like, "Oh, my memory's going, my memory's going." I'm like, "But dude, every time I talk to you, you remember everybody and everything." He's a walking encyclopedia. That guy.
SRV, I'll never forget. This is a great episode. And I love talking about this. You know, it's pretty common now, actually. I'll get people that are either we're recruiting or they're looking for jobs or they're just friends of mine in the industry. HDI is a perfect example where people where I find this. They just don't quite get DevOps. And that the assumption that we came to, or the conclusion that we came to, I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, we said it's really just a movement of people. It's not a framework. It's not process necessarily. It's kind of everything together. And it's I think we need more practical guides on DevOps for people that just can't see it. And, you know, you can recommend that they read the Phoenix Project, which is really helpful. Yep. And that audiobook came out for that this week. If you're on Amazon or Audible, it's on Audible now.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're not subscribed to the IT Revolution newsletter, you should.
Yeah, it's really, the survey stuff that they put on there is actually pretty good. That is better than most anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And so I've been paying attention to the ITSM Academy's DevOps training. So I'm actually going to think about going through that. So I'm having some discussions with them to see what the path is all about. So it's interesting. You know, it's coming together. For me, it was an interesting moment last night. I met a guy who's moving from Long Island, potentially down here to Tampa, and he's with Verizon, and he's one of the senior managers over the network infrastructure. And so I asked him, so what's going on? And he rattled off a bunch of networking equipment that I no longer remember what they do. You know, 6500s and 2502s and 3809s and.
Yep. Actually, those are the ones I remember.
Yeah. And he said, he goes, but we're really trying to look at DevOps and software-defined networks. And I said, wow. I said, this is an interesting turning point where, I don't have to say to somebody, hey, are you doing DevOps? And they say, what's that? Right? So, it's interesting. It's kind of like when ITIL was back in, I'd say 2005, 6ish for me. It would still be called ITIL or ITIL or, all these things. People didn't really know what it was or what it did or what service management quite was. And here we are in 2015 and people still don't know what service management is. So it's good progress.
Yeah, we have a hard time of explaining it. How many times have we said, I can't explain to my spouse what I do, or I can't explain to my friends what I do?
Yeah, well, that particular podcast I was listening to with Cote and Willis, they hadn't done one in a while, so this was interesting to listen to. And Cote was hitting it on the head. He's like, DevOps is really making some strides, but it's still missing the business element. And I think that's really the key with service management. So, I'm actually working on my next blog, and that's really what it is. It's funny, people say ITSM sometimes fails. Why? And I'll tell them, I said, it's because it's about IT.
Yeah, we manage our incidents really, really well. Oh, that network you run the business on, we don't even have a backup for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got 4 environments for my ITSM system and 1 network, one production server for a business critical service, 2. It's crazy.
It's the and it's not necessarily ITIL's fault, right? But
no,
it does say things like you should in your service strategy, it goes, which the book no one read, and no one is still reading. It says, these are the things you should understand about the business that you operate. But again, if you are a hierarchical structure of a management organization, and all you do is just kind of do what you're told, it never really comes to understanding the why and what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve.
That's so true. That's so true. You're removed from it. You're managing by objectives. I think is like a Drucker principle probably, but it doesn't really make sense to do that. You can do trickle down or whatever. And Napoleon, when you talk about the French Revolution and how Napoleon managed, it was kind of similar basically. He would give really general objectives to a small group of people, his generals, and they would give really general objectives to specific groups, and they would have timelines with those objectives. So, go to this place by this time, go this place by this time. And then the idea is that your troops or even your generals or even Napoleon himself could just change direction really quickly. That's agility. It's interesting to see how that ties to being able to innovate. If you've got layers of management in between there, you're just further and further removed. I'll never forget the time that I worked for a huge company, over 200,000 employees. And I took a screenshot once of me and then all of my reports all the way up to the CEO. I think there were maybe 40 windows open. I didn't care about most of what that company did at all. And that's something that companies need to get rid of. You need to open up those lines of innovation. And one of the best things you can do is have your IT people play a BA role for a long time. Have them talk to the business, have them consult with them, and tie their incentives to it. Make it an incentive. Someone told a great story once about how there were 2 consultants in the room from an external organization and 2 consultants from an internal IT shop. And then there was an IT director or VP, I think, actually, and then their customers, someone probably in HR, let's say, for this example. And what would happen is the HR person would say, well, we need to make sure that it does this. And she says, hi, I'm so-and-so from HR. The consultants that are external and paid really well to be there are jotting down the information like with fervor. I must know her name. I must know what her first objective is. I need to know all of this. And the people from IT didn't even write anything down. And it just, that story just sticks with me to say, like, really, that is the problem with IT. That's the reason that ITIL is having issues even.
Yeah, it's understanding the customer experience. And we've said this a million times, but when it comes to understanding your activities and how they relate to the business objectives, you can create all kinds of mind maps and all these crazy things. But at the end of the day, there needs to be a clear understanding of customers. And I've used this situation again many times, but at the time, his name is still Andy Palin, but at the time he was the senior network director for CBS, and we were at a Network World conference. And he was talking about customer and saying customer, and then the guys from Harvard were also there, and they were saying customer. And I said, wait a second, who you guys are talking about 2 different people? What are you talking about? Andy says, I'm talking about the person coming in for their subscription. If their prescription is not there and ready from the doctor being ordered, then that's a bad customer experience. And it was like light bulb went off, and I said, that's the customer we need to hold on to. That's the customer we need to focus on. And and once you do that, it permeates throughout the organization that you don't need all this bureaucracy. You don't need as much governance and regulation and all this management. People are smart people. I was hoping that we'd have Mark on the show, because he sent out a tweet for us and a text for us about the holacracy of Zappos that's happening, right, with Tony Hsieh. And I think that is a telling story of how IT needs to operate. And that's the telling story, I think, of DevOps. Right? You don't need management. I need you to tell me. I don't need the developer to take the requirement and then package it off to a release manager, go into nebulous world, and then ops goes and runs it. Let's just, need to creation to operation. Let's bring those together. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can give you a real world example from my company where we used to silo. This is back from the 90s, but we used to silo engineering from process. So process consultant would come in and we'd define a process, and then engineering would come in and we put in a business system of some kind. And they weren't tied. They weren't married at the hip. They weren't joined like brother and sister. They need to be like conjoined twins even.
Yeah.
Having an engineer in a process discussion is huge for saying how expensive a feature functionality is going to be. And that stuff comes up all the time in a workshop. Someone just says off the cuff, well, we needed to map all of our service component maps so that we can just have that all automated. And then the process person says, oh, yes, definitely. It could, because the technology can do anything. Yes, it can. And then the engineer comes in and they say that one requirement. And he's like, well, that will be 50,000 hours. So let's see, carry the one. You're broke in one requirement. And so you need to get these people talking together. And it's interesting, the Zappos example, they actually name a system that they're using to actually manage this work. And I don't know if you looked at it. I went straight to it. I'm a nerd, right? Yeah, what is it?
Glass Frog?
Glass Frog, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I misheard you say Glass Rock. Trademark, Matt Barron, ding. Matt Hooper, actually, you used it first. I can't steal it from you on the show. But he mentions a system that they've developed to support this new leadership and new management direction. And I think just naming that, first of all, that takes guts. He talked about in the article being in one world and the other. They were trying out holacracy and I guess portions of the company and not all of it, and saying that he came to the same realization we have several times on this podcast. Sometimes you need to take that leap of faith and go all the way to realize the benefits. Because if you test stuff in this sterile, clean room environment, you're never going to get the same results that you would when you put it into the culture, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm stealing some of the thunder of my blog here, but I think that's the problem.
You're promoting the thunder. You're promoting the thunder from your blog.
ITSM. Talk to anybody. You go to any ITSM related conference, be it ITSM, FHDI, anything. And if you ask them and talk to them about how they're selling ITSM internal to the organization, they're selling it as a better way to do things, right? And all these processes and tools and all these kind of things. When reality is, that's a completely wrong way to approach it. What you need to do is sell management is, hey, listen, we're doing ITSM, but we could be doing it better. If you already tell them that they're doing it, because they are, right? You're doing incidents, you're handling requests, you're making changes, you're reporting on availability, you're reporting on capacity. You're just not doing it as well as you should be, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, stop trying to sell them that they have to get this thing. Just tell them this is the thing that you already have. But you know what? We could be doing it so much better. Can we just make some improvements? Can we put a roadmap?
I love this blog post already. I can't wait for you to post it. You should have. Shame on you for not posting it before the show. Seriously,
well, I had to finish writing it before the show.
That's so true. And other people have said that. I've heard other people say, just put CSI in place. I think Ryan Ogilvy actually has a post about that. But he does have a post in response to our problem discussion last week. More on that later. But really, you are doing ITSM. You are doing TBM. You're doing financial management. At least, I guarantee one of you, if you've got a department, you've got money, you separate it out. And start there. And just say that it's an iterative improvement instead of saying, I need $5 million, please sign here.
Yeah, and then you get the problem, too, is that people who are unaware of the perception they live in. So you're in a big organization and say you just bought ServiceNow and you're using it for incident requests and self-service request catalog. And now you're like, hey, we should be using ServiceNow for IT asset management. You turn around and you go, hey, let's deploy ITAM. You've already got ITAM. You're staying at it. You're doing a terrible job. You could probably use this tool to make it much better. But you're already doing it. Don't get caught up in this. We're deploying ITAM. No CIO, no business owner wants to deploy a process.
Yeah.
an IT project. I hate IT projects.
If you can tie it to dollars, you'll get there too a lot faster. Tim, the perfect example is just look up how many incidents from stolen laptops. That's all it takes. That dollar amount alone will guarantee the investment. I guarantee it, especially if you've got a good risk and audit function that you can ping queries against. Because just losing a laptop in and of itself, if they've got personally identifiable information on there, the risk bill just goes cha-ching over and over and over again for every single instance of personally identifiable information. So, they can give you those estimates. Work with your risk teams to get that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I wasn't that impressed by GlassFrog, though. Did you look at the demo? I didn't like the interface specifically.
Yeah, you're talking about the Qbert looking.
I like the way it looks. Whatever. I don't really care about that. It's not a green screen. I'm happy. But when you were rolling over what looks like fish eggs to me, it's like caviar. It says the role of the person, and then you have to click into it to see their name and picture. And I think that construct is a little tough. And I'm really curious about the implementation of this, of course. And I've been reading a little bit about it since Mark texted it out 2 days ago. But I'm really curious to figure out, like, how do you determine what roles are needed on a team? And they talk about this. They use another term for team lead, but it's team lead. And I wonder, like, is that the role? I just really want to get into the details of it right away.
Yeah, what's interesting about this whole holacracy thing, and I think they called out GlassFrog and used that because I think the guy who started GlassFrog actually invented that term, right? So it was But but what's interesting is, and a great point on all this, no management culture is. There's a myth that exists that, hey, no management's all about empowering your people. And it's totally not. It's about reinventing your organization so that you don't have to empower your people, that they're already empowered just simply by the nature of the role and responsibility for the job that they're put in. See, because in classic organizations, big organizations where you have a director and a manager and a associate manager and a team lead, for me to take on more power, for me to take on more responsibility, I have to take it away from somebody, right? So it almost perceives that there's this finite set of empowerment, and it has to be distributed and allocated amongst the 10,000 people we have in our organization. Instead of saying, which is, time out, let's hire really smart people. Let's do the right thing. Let's set a mission and objectives in place, and let's allow people to understand what their roles are, and let everybody empowered, and those who are empowered and creating more value will be compensated appropriately for, and will be given more power because they've shown to be judicious and responsible with the power that they got. So it's not saying that there's a finite amount of power. It's basically saying, hey, everybody can be empowered by the structure here, and there's no more. And it's away from the turf battles. And what I like about it is the way that they handle conflict, right?
Yes, have a way to address it.
Yes, it's first one-to-one. You got a conflict with somebody, go to that person. If you can't get it resolved, then where do you go? Your peers, right? So it's to go back to the peers. Not to get too biblical, but it's very interesting. It was actually something that Jesus had said is like, if you got a problem with somebody, before you go make a sacrifice, go to that person and talk to them. Right? And it's so
before you make a sacrifice.
Yeah. Then go kill an animal. But
oh man.
And then after if your peers can't resolve it, go to the CEO.
Yep. Go straight to Tony Sa.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. How big of an issue and how willing are you willing to die on that mountain for you to take it and bug Tony about this?
Well, and for all of your peers to also die on the vine because they couldn't resolve it. What kind of issue is so big that a team of people can't resolve it?
Yeah.
Racism.
Yeah. I mean, how willing are you to stand there in front of all of your peers and say, I talked to all these idiots and they're wrong. I'm right. Listen to me.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I love it. That's really good. You're right. I just kind of passed over that.
That's accountability, right? That's forcing accountability to the people who can actually affect change.
Yeah, so basically, okay, so we'll go to traditional thoughts on this. R gets assigned to everyone.
Yes.
Accountability gets assigned to you and your peers, and then the CEO. And then consulted and informed is everyone too, because there's transparency, which is another thing. You know, when they call out the system, they're talking about how you're incented by just being a top performing team. Like by basic metrics. Are you selling the most shoes?
Are you selling shoes? Right. And are customers getting the shoes they ordered and all those other things, you know? And are they coming back and buying more shoes?
You know, and just making that transparent turns it into something that is not only a game, but incents you directly. You can basically see if your team is at the top of that list, you are making the bank.
Yeah. So. It'll be interesting to see how successful they are with this. You know, they put a deadline on it by the end of April, was it?
I believe so, yeah. Tentative resignation, I think it's the end of May. Tentative resignation by the 24th of May.
Yes. If you don't want to be involved in this new program, thank you for playing.
I did not plant that there on purpose.
I can't even see it. My video's covering it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I have a high definition view of my video, but there's a Zappos box over there in the corner. This podcast not sponsored by Zappos explicitly.
It would be interesting to see though too if they are successful, right? Let's project it 2 years from now. Zappos crushes it, reduces the major reduction in force because of all the people who didn't want to now have this new way of doing it, and they grow their revenue. They barely increase their overhead. They're producing so much more. Will Amazon, who owns them, then say, "Oh, we gotta rethink our whole strategy here," and they become a holacracy?
Yeah, but you're assuming that people work for Amazon and not just robots.
But you know what? Robots are already in the holacracy.
It's true, yeah. They don't really have a choice in the matter, though. We don't give them a choice. In any case, yeah. So there's some other stuff that I wanted to cover real quick. Theorizing the Web's a great conference right now. If you're not paying attention to TTW15 on Twitter, you should definitely check it out. Hootsuite, I saw, had a feature today. I've been using Hootsuite a lot more right now. They've got a feature that hides promoted tweets.
I may get back on Hootsuite just for that.
$10 a month is totally worth that.
Hootsuite, you may have my business.
I actually tweeted 2 weeks ago. Any company that does this, that removes advertisements and has a pro account, let's say Facebook, for example, how much would you pay for an advertisement-free Facebook?
But what is Twitter going to do for that, though? Twitter's going to get upset about this.
I thought they bought Hootsuite.
Oh, did they?
It's either that or else they bought a different one. If you're listening, tune in. Actually, if you tweet me right now, I actually see that stuff when it comes out. So if you do tweet
tech, the source of truth, or not.
Well, we gesticulate a lot, but we're consultants. You can't blame us on this kind of thing.
Yes. It depends.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, so another question I had it from you specifically, because I know you've got marketing experience and you love watching this stuff in this industry. What do you think about how companies attack each other? So, for instance, right now, the big tool to smash yourself against is ServiceNow. So, what do you think of other companies doing that and just like starting a campaign to either say they're not ServiceNow or differentiate themselves from ServiceNow or try to steal market share from ServiceNow? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, so we've talked about this a million times on our previous podcasts, and Chris used to talk about it. He had the FUD with the circle through it as his avatar for the longest time. The reality is product bashing has been a tactic of marketers who don't want to do the homework, right? So product bashing is very easy. So for instance, there are product out there who say, oh, we offer our product to not in the cloud so that if you want to bring it back on-prem and blah, 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 blah. Well, everybody knows that ServiceNow has customers that are on-premise, right? But yet they've taken that ServiceNow took a hard stand to be a cloud product, spin up instances, move from test to prod easy, all the elastic nature of their infrastructure, all of that stuff became a hallmark of their ease to use. Since the other folks didn't invest in that infrastructure, they didn't build automation, they didn't build elasticity, they didn't build, you could take a config file and just point it to prod and upload and upgrade and, do all your code config and core and all that kind of hard work. They said, because we can't compete, we have to bash, right? And it becomes the fun factor. I believe at this day and age, we have a more educated audience. We have a more educated buyer. So I think most buyers are not even paying attention to that. Well, first of all, the community at large isn't paying attention.
Right.
Those who do are aware of the spin and the rhetoric and the bashing, right? Now, at the end of the day, there are certain feature functions of, we offer this and we don't believe our competitors offer X, Y, Z, but you should ask them. That always works great, right? You're not really bashing. You're just saying, hey, we have I forget what they're called now, SA60 or a SAS. We used to call them SAS 70 Type 2 certifications for data centers. I forget what it is now. I think it's SA60 or something.
Yeah.
That's a high level of security within your data centers and your infrastructure. And you can show response time metrics. You can show uptime metrics. You can show downtime. You can show throughput. You can show page response time. You say, well, these are what we have, and we don't think our competition competes it, but you should ask them what they have.
Yeah.
That's a great way to sell if you are a salesperson.
Yeah, because you're setting yourself up as a trusted advisor.
That's it. These are the facts. I can demonstrate this for you. And one of the greatest things that you can ever say to a customer is, no, it doesn't do that. It certainly builds credibility. And I've seen many sales engineers just spin and could do this or this feature does. Just say, no, it doesn't do that. But it wouldn't take a lot to get there if we knew it. Or the best sales engineer says, well, why would you want to do that? That's a great question. I'll hire that sales engineer in a heartbeat.
You heard it here. Matt Hooper is hiring.
Yes.
Sales engineers. For
Yes.
what? He doesn't know. But
it's a demo. Just do demos all day long. That's all
day long. Here's Trello. Here's everything. You're basically just defining what I do.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm willing to pay at least $10 a week.
Oh, that's awesome. But seriously, if you are looking for a job, do reach out to one of us. I'm sure that we've got something. And go to the Knowledge Conference, because if you've got any process or if you've got any experience whatsoever, someone's hiring there. If not, ServiceNow is probably hiring there. We should do that, though. We should do a FUD call-out week next week, I think. It'd be really interesting to try and find some of that content. And I think now might be the perfect time to look. I'm just kidding. It is interesting to see what happens to the streams as conferences ramp up. Be good to people. Seriously, just be nice and open-minded and optimistic and real, and treat each other like good human beings. Don't harass each other at these conferences, and don't oppress other people.
Just smile and wave. If you come by to get your little thing stamped or whatever they're doing to get people to actually walk the booth halls, just say thank you. Thank you for being here. If you say that to a vendor, they will give you the best tchotchke they have, which is
That's true. And don't forget that there are marketers behind all of this stuff. When you listen to stuff, when you rate someone's speaking session, when you pick up that tchotchke from someone, there's a marketer's job and family and livelihood behind it. So just do the best you can. Be the best person you can be. It's tough to put on the face, especially when there's that many people around and you just want to get to lunch and you want lunch to not be terrible. You bet it. And come and find me. I'll be at breakfast at 7 a.m. at Knowledge 15. You can come hang out, whatever. We'll probably do a Snapcast or something.
Nice. Good.
I've got some tchotchkes over here to sell. And that's Hacking Business Technology. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody.